Good afternoon. I'm joined by Luis Noriega, a coach and sales professional in high ticket sales. Works with many leading coaches such as Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and other high ticket coach sellers. Um, Luis, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day for us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, excited to be here, Dan, and happy to help.
Yeah, thanks. Um, let's get straight into it. The first question I wanted to ask is, how did you get where you are today, and where exactly is that?
Yes. It's we would be here all day, but the short of it is the idea of setting intentions, right? And so today I got off the phone with a lady where she was stuck in her coaching business, and I asked her like, "Well, hold on a second, like let's take a big step back. Like what do you really want?" And then she was like kind of like confused because she thought like, "Oh, well, I want to be a coach," and like kind of very broad terms, right? And so what we wanted to really clarify with her was, okay, but like what specifically and like the niche and like what is this all about? And so long story short, for me, this all started back in 2014 when I started my career in sales over at Oracle doing software sales right out of college. Right. So over the last 10 years, my intention has been to be a like coach, a mentor, somebody that people can go to. Because when I started that corporate like sales career, I realized that, yeah, sales, I love it, but also I love people, right? And working with people and collaborating with people and guiding people. So the short of it is I've always had that intention of being like a leader, a mentor in my own right. And fast forward through the years, like I ended up working with the likes of some of the top coaches, Tony Robbins or the Dean Graziosis and some of these folks. Because also I have been big on networking and masterminds. I think that's where we met in one of the masterminds we're a part of.
Mhm.
And it's just that notion of like always being very clear on like what is it that you exactly want, setting that intention and then moving through life just holding very firm and confident on that intention so that way when things and opportunities do come up, you're essentially like poised and ready to take advantage of those opportunities because I got that role within mastermind.com with Dean and Tony Robbins because I ended up like connecting with somebody from the mastermind as well. And long story short, he connected me, but I also connected with the director at that time through another route. And so the sales director there was like, "Whoa, this person is talking about you." And then you reached out, and it's like, "You're someone I should probably know." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And I kind of assumed because I didn't know like I was being introduced through multiple angles to the same guy. But again, sometimes things happen synchronistically, but because you've focused on that, right? The saying is like where focus goes, energy flows. And that's been like a big part of my whole career.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting to hear that. I think the power of networking is so huge, and a lot of people really overlook it as such an easy way. Local networking events and meet different people. Networking events within industries, etc., can be really, really powerful. And I think you just made the proofs in the pudding there that you managed to get through to some of the elite untouchables in the coaching industry through a little bit of networking and just kind of planning it forward, if that makes sense.
That's right. Exactly.
What do you think has helped you what has been the biggest help in your success?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a single thing, but recently the biggest thing that's been top of mind is the idea of like what is high performance, right? What does it mean to have high standards? And unless you're around a high level coach, then sometimes you don't even know that you're not really doing things to the levels that you know you could be or should be, right? So for me, that's been the biggest thing is like, okay, cool, like I'm doing great here or I'm performing okay there, but what does it look like to perform at the highest levels? Right. And so it's also part of like the idea of honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes we may be successful and then we rest on our laurels, which means like let's say you're in real estate and you're doing okay financially. And so you're like, well, I don't need a coach or I don't need to network. I don't need help. Right. So why would I even look for that? But that's exactly why you're not actually reaching the next level because you've essentially settled and decided, I'm okay, I'm good. One of my mentors told me, is like, yeah, man, you're good enough, but like, is that what you want to settle for? Like, do you want to be the good enough guy? Right. And good enough could be like $1 million a month, $1 million a year, or whatever the case may be. Right. It just depends on like what level are you at. And if you've stopped striving, then at the end of the day, you're gonna be a good enough guy. And that could mean you're making $1 million a month. But if you have more to give and you settled, then there's a problem there, right?
Yeah, I think that well, you're never going to be fulfilled, are you? By settling, you're always going to have a little bit of comfort in the settling period, and then after a while, I'm sure, if anything like myself, you're going to get itchy feet, and things are going to you start asking yourself questions. Have I done enough? Did I really pull all of what I was looking for?
That's right. And you might be asking yourself, like, is this it? After like months of that, maybe even years, right? It's
Yeah,
like, is this it? Like, really? It's like, yeah, I mean, the money's good. I'm happy here. I'm happy there. My relationships or my health or whatever, my travels. But that's the trigger when it's like, okay, I'm probably settling because I'm not uncomfortable. With some of the people I speak to, one of the biggest patterns I tell them is like, look, to really get to where you want to get to and be successful, like you have to be willing to be comfortable in the discomfort, right? Because the comfort zone, I ask them, do you know what the comfort zone is? Like, yeah, it's kind of like when you're just kind of hanging out. It's not nothing bigger, like major. It's like, well, see, that's the problem, that sometimes we downplay the comfort zone because the comfort zone is truly where dreams go to die.
yeah,
Because you're not growing, you're like settling, you're just like you're not expanding. And so that's the thing, is just looking at, okay, what is my next high standard? Because high standard is relative, right? So constantly looking for what does that next level look like, and then looking at people in your inner circle or in your network or in your sphere. If you're in real estate, look around on YouTube or on Amazon or these places, like who are these top leaders and influencers, right? Or who can bridge me to these people, or how can I keep growing and expanding?
yeah. I think the importance of goal setting is huge, isn't it? And that keeps you motivated, because I think that, the real estate coaching, that there's a lot of sales in general, as more and more of us are working from home.
Yeah,
More and more of us are doing more and more online, and this is our meeting. It's online via Zoom rather than in the old school in the meeting room, or maybe a coffee shop if you were lucky. But I think it's important to have either the goals or a coach or mentor, somebody in your corner that's keeping you accountable and keeping you pushing, to change that. Because like you said, it's super easy. You get paid a bit and you have a good month, and there's a vacation coming, and blah blah blah. Next thing you know, you've not been paid for a couple of months, and you're thinking, it takes me a couple of months to get that money in. You don't pick up a new client straight away, and you don't pick up a new sale in real estate straight away immediately. So I think
that's right.
that's really important. Um, what changes would you make now, knowing what you do from when you first got into the industry?
Man, there's there's a lot of changes, but the big one, the big one is that idea of like, I'll phrase it in a different way, and it's the idea of like self-reflection. Self-reflect like periodically, once a week, once a month. Sometimes, especially in real estate or sales, like we're constantly thinking about the next month, the next month. Like, all right, deal done next, deal done next, or I went to that networking event, now let's plan the next one. You got to slow down,
Yeah.
because if you don't slow down and make space, then what happens is life will just be you kind of running on this treadmill, and you're not really going where where you want to go. And so in some of the masterminds we're a part of, like that's the big thing they teach, is like, hey, we have a system for self-reflection now,
Yeah.
right? We have Airtable and some of these things, but the point is, it's first and foremost self-reflect, and then during that self-reflection, being honest with, okay, like, are you hitting your goals? Where are you settling? Where are you playing small? Where have you not made progress where you really wanted to but haven't? And so these are tough questions. And so you can self-reflect, but again, coming back to the topic of leadership and mentorship, if you have a coach who then will do that for you systematically every week, every 2 weeks, then guess what? Like, I'm good. Like, that's taken care of. It's gonna work because you're part of an ecosystem, a coaching process to make sure that you're checking off that box. Because otherwise, it's hard to like self-reflect on your own and journal and then review. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually going to ask, as kind of an add-on, is what what do you do to, how do you ensure that you take time out of your day to reflect? Because it's so hard to just to keep grinding and, work harder than the next guy, which are phrases that I think are very, very macho in our business world, and I think absolutely unnecessary. Because I don't know if I'm sure you'll have experienced this, but a lot of the time that the best quality work you put out is when you're fresh, you just come back from a vacation, or it's the Monday morning after a great weekend away, you feel energized, and it comes across in what you do. The Friday afternoon calls are completely different. You're tired, you're ready to go, you're maybe a little bit burnt out. So what do you do
That's
to,
right.
to keep some space in your diary aside for reflection?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there needs to be systems in place. So, for instance, one of them that I mentioned earlier is like the use of something like an Airtable, Excel sheet, somewhere where you can track, somewhere where you can pull up like what did the last month look like in different areas of life. Number one, number two is coaches, because again, then you step into a system. Your coach will check in on you if they're doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
Every week, every 2 weeks, or whatever the setup is. The other thing too is going to be the idea of like group and community and what's the word I'm looking for here? Yeah, just connections. Because when you're not in your little bubble, if you're working from home, if you're living in the real world, even if it's through Zoom, and but you see other people and you see them, quarter after quarter or year after year, they're growing, then it gives you a chance to tune into those calls or tune into those meetings or tune into those retreats and masterminds and be able to see like, okay, like here's an area where I could do even a little bit better, right? So it's continuously looking to step into these structures, whether it's you doing it on your own through Airtable, through coaching, through masterminds, community calls, coaching calls, group coaching calls. And then the other thing is just wake up a little bit earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like over the last 4 days, I've been waking up at 3 in the morning.
Wow.
Partially because I just wake up and I feel called to get up, and there's a little bit of a spiritual element there. If you look up like the meaning of like waking up around 2:45, 3 a.m. And what I do is I just make space to journal. Like I sit in my bed, I journal, I pray or whatever. And then I go back to sleep. But it gives me that space to self-reflect. That's a little bit on the extreme side, but again, success is not going to hit you over the head. Like you have to make space for it. You have to be proactive. And so whether it's on your own, through coaches, one-to-one or group, or like finding space early in the day, usually it's going to be early in the day because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you and I both know like you're going to be like, man, I'm tired. I want to go, I want to go sleep or I want to hang out.
Yeah. It's also nice, isn't it, as well, so when you are in those times when you do get up. I mean, I do it once in a while, maybe not quite as early as 3 o'clock, but
Yeah, yeah.
get up super early, and the house is quiet. My phone
Yeah.
isn't buzzing, my emails aren't doing. I can do whatever. I can put 100% focus into a task. I mean, even on the Zoom call that we're on now, I had 3 or 4 emails come through and some messages. I just pushed my phone out of the way, so I stopped looking at it. But it's hard when you've got that day-to-day go, and
Yeah.
so it's really important to put it in the diary and have someone keeping you accountable, or holding yourself accountable to that. And I really agree with you in the group format, that having people, you don't want to be the one guy out of 30 people on a Zoom call who didn't do his sales calls that week, or didn't do his KPIs, or didn't do his breath work, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve on that call. And I think that is really, really important. Um, What's what would you say has been your biggest success story? I'm sure you've sold millions of dollars of everything. Not so much interested in the biggest paycheck, but more of what really made you feel good in
Yeah.
your career?
Yeah. So when I was working with Dean and Tony, there was this specific deal I remember because it was number one, the last deal I ever did with them. Because after that deal, I was pretty much done. Number two, it took a year to close that deal. Like a year of me checking in, being diligent, offering value, like following up. And the third element was well, there's a couple elements, but the third element, she was like, yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna go on vacation. It was in December of last year. And she was like, yeah, I don't know. And so I was like, look, I'm here for you. Like, let's make something happen. I pretty much kind of set it up in her favor. She's like, okay, cool. But like, I'm on Eastern Standard Time, and the soonest I can meet is 8 in the morning. I'm in Pacific.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, it's 5 a.m. So I was like, all right, shit. Like, and the other thing is this was a pretty big deal. It was like I think it was like 15, $20,000 like paid in full deal that it was on the line. So that's one area where you have to make a decision. Like, do you want to be comfortable in the discomfort because it's growth, because it's service, because it's not about me, right? Because she needed the help and I know I could help her. I know we can help her bridge these gaps. And it's been a year, right? So it's like she needed to do something. Otherwise, she was going to still be struggling in the same fashion. And so the reason why this situation always stands out is because number one, I was diligent throughout the year, following up, being organized. I was willing to get creative with her and find a way. And then the last one, number four, was this idea that on the call, she actually didn't even want to do it. Like we got on at 5 in the morning and she was like, yeah, because it's fear, and it's doubt. It's like it's already been a year of her like just delaying it. And then so it's just like being a coach for her.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's put this aside. Like, why do you really want to hit your goal, or why do you really want to do this? And you got to remind them of what they want. And she's like, well, yeah, because of these reasons. Like, really, are you sure? It's like, yeah. And what happens if it's another year and I call you in 2025 and it's like, yeah, it's still the same. And she's like, well, I don't want that. It's like, are you sure? Like, why not just settle for that? She's like, well, no, because of these reasons. Like, okay, well, with that said, like, let's get to work. And she finally did it. And then the other thing, funny enough, she was like, all right, cool. Like, here's a card. We tried running it and then it fails. And then she's like at this resort and then her internet's spotty. And then she has to like
Hmm.
call the card company. And I'm just sitting there like, if this goes through, this is going to be like one of the like just most interesting experiences. And I sat on the call with her for like 2 hours and she was trying to figure it out and sort it out. And I had to hold my frame to be like, hey, it's okay. Take your time. Like, hey, it's okay. Call them. She's like, yeah, they're saying this. Like, I don't know. It's like, hey, relax. Like, ask them this question or what about this? So I had to coach her
But
through
yeah.
the year and then on the call and then to get her to like just remain calm and actually move forward. But that's what a good coach does is they realize it's not about me, it's about service. And even then, it's just sometimes we have to get a little bit uncomfortable as well. Because yeah, even me, I'm like, oh shit, I don't know, like is this gonna work or not? But it did because I just followed through. And that's kind of the whole message is you got to be willing to follow through.
Yeah. And I'm sure, tell us what was the success story afterwards? How did she get on?
Yeah. So after that, she joined. So that was for the mastermind. So that was to join the Dean Graziosi mastermind in person to meet up with like the likes of Dean and Tony and these guys in person in Arizona. And she was based in Mexico. And so, yeah, I mean, it worked tremendously because from there, she actually stepped into the room of the next level. And she was doing pretty good, like financially in her business, of course, because she could afford a 15-20K payment in full. Okay. And she's based in Mexico, which the exchange rate is pretty crazy. It's like 20 to 1 or 19 to 1
Hmm.
USD. Okay. So that's what I mean. Like whenever there's like whenever you talk about high standards, it's like what's all relative, right? But there's a difference to your point. Like there's a difference between reaching a high standard versus like burning yourself out because you're chasing something that it kind of looks good.
Yeah. And it's nice when you go to those kind of things and it's all well and good being the top salesman in your office, but then when you're put into a situation where you're with the top salespeople for a region or a country or a whole big company, and all of a sudden you go thinking, wow, I'm not the hottest thing anymore. There's a whole bunch of hot in here, and I'm kind of medium hot, and I want to get better and I want to improve, and that really opens up so many doors and so many avenues into having new conversations. As we mentioned earlier, just the importance of being able to network with those other people is
Yes.
tremendous, really powerful.
Yeah. And also it like gives you purpose to keep evolving so that you don't stay stagnant,
Yeah.
because just real quick, there's this idea of like the six human needs, and Tony Robbins teaches about this. And there's two of them actually, two spiritual needs. The other one are more like fundamental needs. The last two, it's growth and contribution. If you're not meeting your need of growing, you're gonna, even if you're a billionaire, you're gonna feel flat, lifeless, right? And even if you're growing, but you're not contributing, you're still not going to feel connected or purposeful because then you're just like a selfish person with all this money or all this fame or all this power, but you're not really contributing to something bigger than just yourself. So if you're able to meet these two needs, whether you're a janitor or like a high profile CEO, if you're able to meet those two needs, like you're going to feel fulfillment in your life.
Yeah. No, I think those are really, really valid points, and that's why you see a lot of these the crazy successful the billionaire business people, they retire,
Yeah.
and 4 months later they're starting with a new startup, new project, working 12 hours a day, back on the grind because you lose that sense of well-being, I suppose, to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this guy who says your self-worth is, how does he put it? He goes like your work is is reflected in like your self-worth or something like that. So whenever our work rate is mediocre, then we feel mediocre, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't feel useful. But if your work rate is like I'm giving my best, I'm helping people, I'm showing up, then you feel really good. Your self-worth feels really high,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true, isn't it? How you say that, because it feels good to do a good job, doesn't it? And it feels doesn't feel great to do a shitty job. And I think that hits the nail on the head with that. Um,
That's right.
what's the next step in your business? Where are you going from here? Next sort of 6 months goals.
Yeah, yeah. So I was just talking to another mastermind I'm a part of, and our goal is to do like 1 million a month in cash collected in the team that we're a part of. We're very far away from that. But that's the whole point is like what is the next level? And so for me in the industry that I'm a part of, that is the next level. That's like you're a really top company, you're a really top producer, you're really, helping people because we're in the high ticket coaching space, right? So if you're collecting 1 million a month every month, that means you're helping a lot of people, right? And so that's the vision I have for my team. We're small. We got like maybe 4 people. Some months it's like 200, 300,000 a month. So we have to triple, quadruple the business, maybe even more. But still, like it's something I'm looking at over the next 2, 3, 4 years, and like really, that's another thing too, is think long term. Again, we live in a fast-paced society with Instagram and now freaking TikTok, right? Which like 5 second, 2, 3 second things. We got to go back to the basics of like, the question, it was a joke back in the day, was like, where do you want to be 5 years from now? But we've lost that because like
Yeah.
5 years from now, I don't even know what's going to happen with the election 2 months from now
Yeah,
or whatever,
exactly.
right? So it's like,
Let's get to 2025 first, and then
yeah, right. So, but see, that's the difference in the high performers and the ones that are really living their best life is if they're like they're in the discomfort. They're okay being uncomfortable. They're okay saying, I don't know what's gonna happen, but this isn't the intention. I want to get to this place in the near future, whether that's 3, 5 years from now. Some people think in decades, and some people think in minutes or hours or the weekend. So you
yeah,
want to hang out with the people who are thinking like a decade later. It's like, holy shit, this guy's willing to put in 10 years of work. I vividly remember this. I'll end on this note. He goes, we were in this like networking thing at a Brendan Burchard event, and we were going in circles. And I was like probably the youngest guy back then. I was probably like 25, 26. And then they get to this older gentleman, and he's new. He was also a new coach back then, and I was new back then. And then he goes, yeah, my thing here is over the next 10 years, I want to get to this place. And I caught up to him after the event. I was like, hey man, real quick, like did I hear you say like in the next 10 years? And he's like, yeah, in the next 10 years. I was like, how does that make any sense? Like, why don't you like think about the next quarter or the next year? He's like, well, first of all, I'm way older than you, so I know what a decade like really feels like. And he's like, it's like actually like this. And so that kind of like hit me because I was like, holy shit, yeah, I'm young. So for me, time is I was only 2 decades and a half old.
yeah,
This guy was six, maybe decades and a half old, right? So like he had lived 3 times me almost, right? So that's the thing. It's like, holy shit, these guys are willing. It always stuck with me. He's willing to, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like he's willing to like go through the process for 10 years to make sure it succeeds. And I'm over here wondering, will this succeed in the next month or two? It's
yeah.
like, well, fuck, no wonder.
Well, I think that's society in general, isn't it? We're so quick to trash, rather than okay, keep working and keep working and keep fixing and put some more ideas and effort into it. We're kind of, I tried that, doesn't work. I'm going to do this now, and try that doesn't work. I'm going to try something else. Try something else, and it's a nice reminder to slow down and kind of go back to basics. Um, if I
That's right.
can, I'm conscious of your time, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what are you mentioned you want to bring up to get your business up to $1 million a month. You're currently doing a little bit less than that, and you're thinking you're maybe going to have to, depending on the month, obviously, two times, three times your revenue. How are you going to do that?
Yeah. Well, the big piece is we need a model what works. We need to lean on coaches, even though we're doing like fairly well. Like we're in the search for our next level coach, our next level mentor on the marketing side, on the funnel side. Right now we're running a lot of webinars, so we're looking to see like who can we team up with to learn the process and the pathway. Recently, Alex Hermosi has been on the come up, and that's one thing like that I always take away from him is his success rate was so accelerated because he went to the Russell Brunsons, he went to these folks, and he was willing to put money and time and effort on the line to ensure he knew like what works. Like I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but it takes a certain level of like high performance mentality to do that. Again, like coming back to some of the people I speak to on a day-to-day basis, this one lady was pretty much on the call to like fish for information, right? And kind of like free coaching, consulting on the call. And I was like, let me ask you something. I was like, do you think your current methods are working for you? I'm just curious. Like, no. It's like, how long have you been kind of looking around and researching and then this kind of like information gathering mode? And she's like, oh, for like a year, almost 2 years. And that's where you have to hold the mirror to them. It's like, oh, wait, do you see that? Like, it's actually the pattern of how you behave that's causing the results.
Hmm.
Could it be possible that maybe it's time for you to like step out of your comfort zone and get somebody to help you break through? Or like, how do you feel? And then, of course, she was like, oh, well, she's like, well, yeah, maybe, like, yeah, it could be possible. Like, what do you have in mind? And now I get to coach her through, well, based on where you're at, I think this, and this could work for you. But the reason I say all of that is because again, we have to be willing to be humble enough to say, yeah, even though we're doing okay, like we're not doing $1 million a month. So now we have to go seek somebody who is doing $1 million a month, vet a few people out, and then see how we can follow their blueprint.
Yeah. So market
Yeah.
market research and continue to push with new products and innovation.
Yes, yes, and it really just is dialing in the systems and the processes, right? Like something that's repeatable because we can't keep throwing stuff at the wall. Like we can't like it's not sustainable, right? And so we need an actual mechanism that is consistent, and because of that, it will lead to consistent growth over the quarters and over the years.
Yeah. How long's the company been going?
Since 2017, it's called Passion.io. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Since 2017. Awesome. Um, Last question, I'll let you get back to your day. Um, Best advice you can give to somebody who's looking to succeed in business today.
Yeah. Um, sometimes with these, like it's hard because it really depends on everybody's kind of starting point. But the biggest one is gonna be, it's gonna sound kind of weird, but it's like you got to get out of your own way. Like you really have to self-reflect and figure out like where am I settling? Where do I think I'm really good at? And then let me audit that or let my coach audit that. And so you have to be willing to like just be honest. You have to surrender, because our ego is so quick to like, no, no, I'm good. Like, no, no, like look at I have this and I have that and this asset and that thing over there. It's like, okay, yeah, that's good enough, buddy, but do you want to settle for that? And again, most people, if you're honest with yourself, the answer is probably, well, I don't want to settle for this. Oh, fair enough. So then what do you want to strive for next? And now
Yeah.
there's a gap there. Naturally, there's a gap there. A lot of people don't do that though. A lot of people, they're walking around thinking like, yeah, I'm already like top shit or whatever. Maybe they are, and that's really good. But do you want to be good enough, or do you want to
Yeah,
be
but
like,
everyone can get better, and that's
that's
that's the
right,
frustrating
yeah,
part. And
you know?
I really agree with you. I think you've opened up something for me in this call in that settling for where you are. And I think that's a really good way of asking people as well, are you are you settling? Like you said, you may be doing great and that's okay. But you could do a little bit better. And if you don't want to, that's absolutely okay. And some people are okay settling with where they're at, whereas others really want to push on to the next level. And I think that's where people need a bit of help.
Yeah, and the other question too that I almost forgot is what are you neglecting? What are you neglecting in your business if you really think about it, or even in your relationship with your wife, or even in your health?
Yeah.
you know? And now if you sit down, you're like, oh, well, to be honest, yeah, I'm not tracking my macros. I'm not tracking my hydration. I'm not like, oh, okay, cool. So that's the truth. Now we come to the truth. Now we can then start to create some sort of game plan to be like, if that's where you're currently at, do you want to settle for that? You know, but it's like now you got to be honest and face the fire.
it it's funny, isn't it? Because I think on paper it's actually quite simple. To
Yeah.
succeed, it's a case of evaluating what you're good at, evaluating what you're not good at, getting a good business plan, having a coach to keep you accountable, and doing all of the things. And it brings me actually to a quote from one of from a broker of mine. I said the difference between successful people and non-successful people are both of them know what they need to do to be successful. The successful people do all of the things on the list, and the non-successful people do the ones that they like or find easy. And I think almost every call that we have, it's a very similar thing. It's people who are saying, be accountable, get out of bed early, organize your time, make sure that you've got some time for yourself in there, time to do all of the tasks that you don't want to do, time to do the tasks that you do want to do, and keeping accountable and having a coach. I think that's the summary.
Here's the thing, like metaphorically, it's like, look, a lot of us, we say we want to build a strong foundation, but we're not willing to dig the pit. We're not willing to be in the pit. And the pit's dark, it's damp, it sucks
Yeah,
sometimes. Right. And so that's where we have to know what does balance look like too, because sometimes like it's not even that we're working hard, it's that we're not even really trying, right? But sometimes we tell ourselves the stories like, I'm so burnt out. Maybe, like maybe you just need like some rest and sleep. Like, do you track your sleep? Like, you have an R ring? Like, are you tracking? Like, where's the data at?
yeah,
But see, that's where we need to come to the truth. And so that's very difficult. So, two pieces there. Number one is you want to build a strong foundation, you got to be in the pit sometimes, right? To dig it out, like to set the foundation. And once that process is through, okay, you were okay being in the discomfort, and now you can then maybe hang out a little bit or like build now first level and the second level of your success. But initially, that digging the pit and being in the pit and waking up early or getting late or stretching yourself, it's real. Like you have to understand, and Hormozy is huge on that. I'll end on this one because he goes, oh, a lot of people tell me, well, I don't know if I'm good enough. And he just hits him in the face like, yeah, you're not good enough. You're new. Like you're not that good. So therefore you need to like be okay with being in the process of improving because that means in the very nature of improving that you're not good enough. That's okay. Now you're a good enough human and all that other stuff, but skill wise, like we have to be okay with being in the pit and realizing, oh, I just need to improve upon this. And that's okay. Like there's nothing else to it.
yeah. I really like that actually. And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about once, everything is so right now, yesterday, want it in 3 minutes. It's you're not going to be the best buddy because it's your first week. You know, breathe a little bit,
Yeah,
learn,
yeah,
and
yeah.
go from there.
Yeah, and being okay with it, like just coming to the awakening, a realization that like, oh yeah, there is a process here. A baby, a human being, it takes 9 months, and even 9 months in the span of eternity is like it's nothing.
Yeah,
But in terms of reality, it's like it's 9 months. Try to hold your breath for 9 months or try to do anything for 9 months. Like it's a long time,
yeah,
but also it's like you just have to just come to terms with reality. And these days we live in kind of a social media and all these realms where it's hard to actually do that unless you make space, unless you get a coach to show you the mirror and show you some of those blind spots.
yeah. And it's tough, isn't it? I think it's well. That's also the reason why I think we've seen a huge increase in coaching in the last probably 5 years. A huge surge in that because people are starting to appreciate that, I can't do it all on my own.
That's right.
Luis, thank you so much. This has been a really, really great interview. Really, really appreciate having you on and wishing you all the best with passion
Of course,
and getting to a
appreciate you so
million bucks
much.
a month.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. I'm ready. Appreciate you.
Cheers,
Right
buddy.
there.
Ciao.
Cheers.